gangster what you got going on.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, wrapping up the week again. Another week gone by way too fast. One good thing about this weekend is we got a long weekend, so something to look forward to. But
That only makes next week go by that much faster.
yeah, next week that much faster, and
It's cool for this week.
yeah,
Next
it's cool.
week is not cool.
Yeah. But as you can see, we got the Chevelle on the ground, and this thing looks absolutely sick. It's got a little bit of a ghetto lean going on to it right now, but it don't have no motor or transmission or anything in it. So the front will match the rear once we get it to, or they get the motor and everything in it. But yeah, super excited about the way it turned out. It's sitting as low as it possibly can right now. I mean, this thing's slammed out. I mean, that tire's tucked up in there pretty good ways. It don't really translate into video and photo as well as it does in person. So thing's sick. Got everything finished up that we could for them now. At least the car is back into a roller. I'm sure Derek will throw in a clip of the underneath and everything because the rear end looks absolutely sick in this thing. But super excited about this thing. Should be going home next week sometime. But they'll get it back, start doing all their everything they're going to do to the car, and then at some point they will eventually bring it back, but it will just be the frame. It won't be the body. They'll get the motor and transmission put in there, and they'll pull the body off of it. We'll do the transmission cross member and outriggers. We couldn't do that right now because he don't know what transmission he's wanting to run, and then there's a few other little small things that we're going to do to help stiffen up the frame on the backside of this car. But we can't really do it and get to all the welds and everything with the body on there. So next time y'all see it, it'll just be a frame. And but yeah, one reason we're having to do that is because whenever you mini tub these things, literally all that's left of the frame rail is like just a 1/4 inch piece of metal that's just double wide down through there. So the back side of these frames gets super flimsy. And these frames are already super flimsy as it is, so that's why we did all the subframe connectors and everything. But this thing's wrapped up, gonna go home. So really, we've just been working on 2 cars this week, getting the Chevelle done, and then we made a lot more progress on the Mustang, the white Mustang. So we're gonna walk down there and show y'all what we done to it. Now this has been Derek's baby for the majority of the week, so. Actually, we kind of tag teamed this thing for a little bit this week, didn't we?
Yeah, we put some hours in.
Yeah, we put some hours in. One thing about some of these projects is, like, especially right now, like, a lot of the stuff that we're getting into doing on these cars is like the small, minute, detailed stuff. So it takes a lot of time, and it's really hard to translate what all we've actually gotten done. But as you can see, we got the rest of the front clip done on this thing. Got the strut towers all cut out how we wanted them to. Got all the outriggers and everything welded to them. Everything's fully welded and ready to go. Got the firewall finished, cleaned up. Got all the holes welded up that needed to be ground down, and welded up all the holes on the strut towers. So got all that done. Like I said, got all the outriggers, everything like that. There is still a few bars missing from the front clip, but we're not going to be installing those until we start getting the motor placement and getting the front clip and everything on it. Don't want to put anything in the way that's going to hinder us moving forward, and that we're going to have to cut out and all that jazz. Don't want to cost ourselves any time or the customer any money that he does not need to spend. So got all that. Got the K-member spacers in. Got the rack and pinion, or got the K-member stripped down of the old struts and everything. Got it back on. The customer actually just left, dropping us off some parts. So we have a new set of front struts. We got a new set of Racecraft 2-inch drop spindles for it, and then we'll be switching off all the brake and everything and the accessories off of the old spindles to all that new stuff, and get all this slapped back together. That way, eventually this thing will. We're trying to get it back into a roller. Moving on from there, we're going to move into really. We haven't done anything to the center part of the car other than weld our bars to it. But the center part of the car is going to be kind of the last thing that we do here for now. So we'll move kind of to the back of the car. as you can see, and from the other videos, we got everything cut out. But this week, Derek finished trimming out around all the frame rails, skinning all of them, capping the frame rails. We got all that done. So we will end up running a sheet over the top of that frame rail right there and capping it off, just making that a nice, new, clean frame rail. From there, we put an outrigger from the top of the torque box that ties into the backside of the cage. Then from there, we have an outrigger that goes from your main number 1 bar to the torque box, and then a gusset kicker off of that. And then this torque box needs to be finished welding to this rocker. So the biggest reasoning for doing that is because since we cut all the sheet metal out of this car, those frame rails don't do nothing in this car now. They are just there for class rules and everything like that. So all that sheet metal in them stock frame rails is what those torque boxes used to attach to, and that was where their strengths come from. Well, now that all that's cut out, I mean, even the upper torque boxes, them things are just kind of floating in there. So that's why we did all those gussets and outriggers and stuff to those lower boxes. And this next week, we will be doing all the rest of the bars for the upper torque boxes and stuff like that. But it's really important that you gusset those, the uppers and lowers, because that's where all the tension and pressure from the rear end is getting drove into the car. So just got to make sure that those are gusseted very well. We'll move on back a little bit further. As you can see, we got the rear end mop back up in there from last week. Reasoning for that is because we have our new shocks and everything that we're going to be running. We're going to be using a set of 9-inch travel QA1 mod series shocks. So we have these are basically a mock-up shock that we use that simulates the shock at ride height. So that shock is it's a 9-inch travel shock. Most of the time you leave 1.5 inches to 2 inches of shaft showing, so that leaves you with a 7 inches of shaft inside the shock, then you do all the calculation and get your overall height for that shock. So then once we do that, we just cut these to that length for the actual ride height that they're going to be, and then we'll take and set the car as low as it can, get your adjuster on your rear end set as low as it can. That way, we're building the car at its lowest ride height, and then it can always be raised from there. So it makes it really easy and helpful having these mock-up shocks in here. Makes it a lot easier to place everything, or tabs, because if you do a 1x1 square tubing, it actually gets your spacing and everything right for your tabs, and you ain't got to worry about that. But we're just now getting this set in there. We got a little bit more of adjustments that we need to do. We need to lower the rear end just a little bit before we actually start tacking all this into place. But yeah, we got a lot of that going on. Like I said, you can already see that we got the bar in there. It just needs to be adjusted. Everything needs to be adjusted. Make sure that everything's going to fit and work the way that it needs to. From there, once we get all that done, we got a lot more, like I said, bars that will be going into this car to help support everything in the back and the upper torque boxes. So next Friday, y'all see a bunch of that. Let's see, what else? We're going to be cutting a little bit more sheet metal out of this car, just because, customer wants as light as possible. So we'll be cutting these upper quarter inner skins out, and then we'll actually be taking and removing these extra panels that are panel bonded to the quarter skin. Really need to get those out of the way for the wheels and the tubs and everything like that. But something else. So there's nothing actually wrong with this anti-roll bar or where it's at, really, but we are going to move that anti-roll bar. You might be asking why. The reasoning for that is as low as this car is, as you can tell, your arms are running to the front side of the chassis. So if you're racing and you need to make a quick, or not really quick, but if you need to make an anti-roll bar change or an adjustment or something like that, not change, but just an adjustment, you're going to have to jack this car, because this thing's probably going to have a 4.5 inch ride height, 4 to 4.5 inch ride height. So you're going to have to jack the car all the way up, sit there and mess with it, to where if we just take and put the anti-roll bar up high in the trunk, or do it on the back side. That's how we usually do them. We usually run them off the back side of the rear end, arms running this way, and your links coming up. That way, if you need to make a anti-roll bar adjustment, all you gotta do, get up underneath the back of the car, because the back where the bumper is always a little bit higher. You just slide right up underneath there with your wrenches and make your adjustments that you need to. So that's probably something that we're going to. I mean, it is something that we're going to be changing on this car, because it's very important whenever you're building these cars to make sure that you're building them with the intention of them actually being worked on. There's nothing worse than spending all this money and somebody not putting the thought process through of you actually having to work on the car, and then whenever you're at the track having to mess with it, it's just an absolute nightmare to work on. So we're trying to be thorough and think everything through as we do it, and make this thing as easy and as simple for him to be able to work on it at the track. I think that's kind of a wrap up on this thing. You got anything else to add, Derek?
No, just it's getting tight to move around inside of this one.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
That's the only thing that as you start adding all these bars into it, especially once we start adding the bars in the rear, man, this thing's just gonna become a nightmare to crawl around inside of and weld. So that'll be fun. But super happy with the progress that we've made on this thing. It's been really good. Like Derek said at the beginning, it's going to be nice having Monday off, but man, do we have a lot to get done next week. We got a lot done, but we have a lot to get done next week, so we're excited about that. But like I said, it's just it's going to be a lot. But that should be a wrap for today or this week per se. Like I said, guys, just make sure y'all are leaving comments of what y'all want to see. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and that's going to be a wrap for today. And y'all have a good Memorial Day weekend, and we'll catch y'all next Friday.